All right, everybody, welcome back. I am so excited for today's deep dive because we are talking about something that is a little bit scary
Yeah.
and a little bit mysterious to a lot of folks,
Mm,
and that is DDoS attacks.
absolutely.
We've got some really interesting,
Yeah.
this idea that DDoS attack is kind of like a digital tsunami. I don't know if you've
Yeah.
heard that analogy
That
before,
was
but
a good one.
yeah, it's pretty powerful, right? Because it's like you're just flooding.
Just a huge wave of
Yeah,
traffic.
you're flooding this website with so much traffic that it essentially just crashes.
Right. It can't handle it.
Yeah, and it's inaccessible to like legitimate users.
And it's a malicious intent.
Yeah.
Someone is actually directing that wave.
Right. It's not just like a random, you know.
It's not an accident.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is an attack. It's meant to disrupt services to cause damage.
Yeah. And when you think about the motives behind that, like it can range from, just like disrupting a service to like causing financial damage or reputational damage, or even using it as like a smokescreen for other like cyber crimes, like, data theft or ransomware.
Yeah, exactly. And sometimes it can even be, just like a prank.
Right. Yeah.
Very often there is a very clear motivation.
Yeah. There's a purpose behind it.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I think is like super fascinating, but also kind of scary is this idea of botnets.
Yeah.
Can you explain like what a botnet is and how it plays into like the mechanics of a DDoS attack?
So a botnet is basically a network of devices,
Right.
and these can be computers, phones, even like your smart TV or your refrigerator.
Oh, wow.
Any device that's connected to the internet can potentially be part of a botnet.
Go on.
And what happens is these devices, they get infected with malware
Right.
without the owner knowing, and this malware allows the attacker to control those devices remotely.
So like my fridge could be part of a cyber attack and I would have no idea.
That's right.
That's kind of freaky.
And it's not just one or two devices. We're talking about botnets that can have hundreds of thousands or even millions of devices,
Wow.
all controlled by the attacker.
Okay.
So imagine you have an army of 1 million zombie computers,
Right.
all doing your bidding.
Yeah.
That's what a botnet is.
That's wild. And so they're using this botnet to essentially bombard the target.
Exactly. They're sending tons and tons of requests to the target server, trying to overwhelm it.
Yeah.
And because it's coming from so many different devices, it's very difficult to defend against.
So it's like a coordinated mob,
Exactly.
like a digital mob.
And the target just can't keep up.
Yeah, and Paste and Text talks about the GitHub attack in 2018 as like a really high-profile example of like a really sophisticated DDoS attack. Can you tell us a little bit more about that?
Absolutely. So the GitHub attack was one of the largest DDoS attacks ever recorded. It peaked at 1.35 terabits per second of traffic.
That's insane.
It's a massive amount of data.
Yeah, I don't even know what that means, like in terms of like,
It's hard to even comprehend.
Ah!
But basically, it's enough to take down almost any website.
Right.
And what made this attack so interesting was that the attackers used a technique called memcached amplification.
Okay.
So memcached is a type of software that's used to speed up websites,
Okay.
but it has a vulnerability that can be exploited to amplify DDoS attacks.
Okay.
So instead of directly attacking GitHub, the attackers sent requests to a bunch of memcached servers, and those servers then sent even larger requests to GitHub.
So it's like they're using these servers as like amplifiers.
Exactly like a megaphone.
That's crazy.
And it makes the attack much more powerful.
Wow. So it's not just like a brute force attack. It's like they're using this like clever technique to amplify.
Exactly. They're being very strategic.
Yeah. So GitHub was actually able to mitigate the attack relatively quickly.
They have good defenses.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show you how sophisticated these attacks can be.
And how much damage they can potentially cause.
Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about that, like the impact of these attacks.
Right.
Like if a DDoS attack is successful, what are the consequences, like for a business, for example?
So for businesses, the consequences can be devastating.
Yeah.
Imagine you're an online retailer and your website goes down.
Right.
You can't process orders. You can't take payments.
You're losing money.
You're losing money. You're losing customers.
Yeah.
You're damaging your reputation.
And that could be really hard to recover from.
It can take a long time to rebuild trust.
Yeah. And then, for individuals, it's not just about inconvenience.
No, it can be much more serious than that.
Right.
Imagine you rely on online banking or telehealth services.
Okay.
If those services are taken down by a DDoS attack,
Yeah.
it can have a real impact on your life.
Right.
And as we mentioned earlier, DDoS attacks can also be used to cover up other criminal activities.
Yeah, like stealing data or installing ransomware.
Exactly. So it's not just about the inconvenience, it's about the potential for real harm.
Right. It's a security risk as well.
Absolutely.
And it seems like with the rise of the Internet of Things, with all these devices connected to the Internet,
It's a growing problem.
yeah, it's just going to get worse, right?
Unfortunately, that's probably true.
Yeah, because all these devices have, varying levels of security.
And many of them are not very secure.
Right. So they're easy targets for these attackers.
They're low-hanging fruit.
Yeah, so it feels like it's kind of like a losing battle. But is there anything that we can do to protect ourselves?
There is hope.
Okay, good.
There are things that both organizations and individuals can do to mitigate the risk.
Okay, so what are some of those things?
So one important thing is advanced monitoring. You need to be able to detect unusual traffic patterns early on,
Right.
so you can respond quickly.
So it's kind of like having like an early warning system.
Exactly.
Okay.
Another important thing is robust network architecture.
Okay.
So your network needs to be able to distribute traffic effectively
Right.
and absorb surges so that it doesn't get overwhelmed.
So it's kind of like having like a stronger foundation.
That's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And then there are also specialized anti-DDoS solutions.
Okay.
These are often provided by third-party security companies.
Okay.
And they can help to filter out malicious traffic and keep your website online.
So it's kind of like having like a bodyguard for your website.
I like that analogy. So
Yeah.
it's a multi-layered approach.
Okay.
You need to have
Yeah.
good monitoring, robust architecture, and specialized solutions.
So it's not just one thing, it's like a combination of things.
Exactly.
Okay. And I imagine it's also important to like stay informed.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
These attacks are constantly evolving. So you need to stay up to date on the latest threats and the latest mitigation techniques.
So it's kind of like a constant learning process.
It is.
You can't just like set it and forget it.
Right.
You got to stay on top of it.
You have to be vigilant.
Well, this has been a really fascinating deep dive.
It has.
I feel like I've learned a lot.
Me too.
And I think if I had to sum it up in one sentence, it would be DDoS attacks are a serious threat, but by understanding how they work and taking proactive steps to protect ourselves, we can reduce our risk.
I agree.
Yeah, so it's not all doom and gloom.
No, not at all.
There are things that we can do.
We have the power to protect ourselves.
Yeah, and I want to leave our listeners with one final thought.
Okay.
We talked about the impact of DDoS attacks on businesses and individuals.
Right.
But what about critical infrastructure?
Oh, yeah.
Like what happens if a major power grid or a hospital's network is crippled by a DDoS attack?
That's a scary thought.
It is, right?
It can have a huge impact on society.
Yeah, and it really underscores the importance of robust cybersecurity measures in our increasingly interconnected world.
Absolutely.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. And as always, stay curious.
Stay safe out there.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here.
Anytime.